They don't have glass breaking in AEW to signify that the people should scream and yell and jump up to their feet and throw the babies in the air. They hit the opening strains of Like Mussolini to keep the demo that Big Bang ratings really great. And so they got Punk out right at the top of the program to try to keep all those people wondering, we just watched this apparently highly popular sitcom, and now we're going to go, what the is this? They were in New Orleans at the UNO Lakefront Arena, scene of some of my greatest triumphs.
Did you recognize it? Does it look, from a television point of view, does it look like the arena you remember?
Well, we never did TV there.
I know, but when you see it on TV,
yes,
okay.
Yeah, it's a nice place. It's probably, as I recall, seats about 8,000-ish or thereabouts. They call it the Lakefront Arena because it's on the UNO Lakefront Arena. It's right beside a big lake, and it's on the campus of the University of New Orleans. So a really creative name for it. But it's beautiful. And that's a building that Watts started running, I think, when we were there in 84, because the original building for wrestling for those many years, the Dog's House, the Downtown Municipal Auditorium in downtown New Orleans. And that was the primary location for the weekly wrestling matches from not only Mid-South, but before Mid-South when McGurk was the promoter, and then years before that, etc. It was an old building, historic. It was a double-sided type auditorium where you could open up one side, which they did usually for the matches that were weekly on Monday nights in New Orleans, and it seated about 4,000, 5,000 people. But if you opened up the other side, the curtain down the middle, there was a big stage and shit, but you could then double the size of the building. And they only opened up the whole thing once when we were there, and that was when my hair was at stake. And if they'd have just kept the half open, we'd have been fine. But they opened it up, and it didn't look too good because that was after Dog had left. Nothing was going to save it. Anyway, the Downtown Municipal Auditorium was the regular building, and in the old days, they would go over to the St. Bernard Civic Center, not named after a dog, but the actual saint. It was a St. Bernard Parish in Louisiana is right across not the causeway, but it's out east of regular New Orleans. And when the downtown auditorium wasn't available, they would go out there sometimes. That was a little building that seated 2,500 people. They didn't like to make a habit of going there. But the UNO Lakefront Arena, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going into so much detail in a minute. The Lakefront Arena was in a completely different area, whereas the downtown auditorium was obviously downtown. St. Bernard Civic Center was way out of town to the east side for the people that lived out in the suburbs. The Lakefront Arena drew a better class of people, better dressed, possibly from a more affluent part of New Orleans, because to get there, you really needed a car. The downtown auditorium, the buses, and you could walk. So the downtown building was heavily African-American, which is one of the reasons why Dog was God there. The St. Bernard Civic Center was more the Cajuns and the more lower income fucking, how should we say this nicely? Lower income people out in that part of New Orleans. And then the UNO Lakefront got a completely different crowd, including college kids and younger people. And the only time that all those people would ever meet was at the Superdome 4 times a year. So you drew different crowds. But this was the Lakefront, and they better be glad, because I guarantee, I know the Bucks weren't on this show, but some of the guys on the AEW roster, if they'd have gone to the Municipal Auditorium in downtown New Orleans, the crowd would have stolen their wallets. So thankfully, they were out in a good part of town. I know I've said in the past that CM Punk is approaching a magician. And this was the ultimate test. I'm like, what? How is this going to work? CM Punk against, what is Penthouse's new name now instead of Penthouse Zero Calorie whatever, he's Penthouse Obscuro.
Obscuro.
Obscuro. He's dark. He's coming out behind a tombstone, or from behind a tombstone. His manager, Alex, has turned into a Sammy Terry cosplayer. For all of the WTTV Channel 4 fans from 30, 40 years ago, you'll remember Sammy Terry.
He was so good in his role, and now I thought it was a one-night thing, and now it's been a couple months of this, and it's not going away, and it's terrible.
He's swinging a thing, bring out your dead! Bring out your dead! So, I'm figuring this is going to be a clash of styles. Can Punk do it? Because, let's face it, Penthouse he's just not going to be very good at working with a worker. His gimmick is posing, it's gestures. There's no facials because of the mask. A lot of flips and things that don't make a lot of sense, but let's see what Punk can do here. And the crowd was so hot at the beginning that they could milk the dueling chants. And for some reason, Penthouse had his supporters there, but they did the shove, pie face, and then they got into the trading the chops, and at least it wasn't, we're going to see that later on, at least it wasn't Samoa Joe and Suzuki. They were chopping each other like they were trying to hit each other and knock each other down against the other's will. You know what I'm saying? And did you see Punk's body language when he's getting chopped? He's flying back all the way around with it. He's selling it. He's reacting to it instead of they just standing there trading on purpose. So they had a match. It made sense. There wasn't as much of the Lucha Brothers lucha as normal, which was a definite benefit. There was one thing, and actually, I don't even need to. I'm not trying to pull experience or veteranism on CM Punk, but he should have known, and it worked out. It didn't work, and maybe he won't do this anymore. But they went to a break. When they came back from the break, the one thing I didn't like about the match, and at least he saved it and it became a teaching moment, they're both fighting on the turnbuckles, and then both of them stand up together on the top rope. And I've said this a million times. I don't care who you are, how good you are, how you do it. It doesn't matter. There is no way to suspend disbelief, and it looks ridiculous in the context of a contest when both guys stand up with both feet on the top rope, and you can't tell me that they're not cooperating. And you can't tell me that the second guy to go up to the top is not just stepping up on purpose and being pulled somehow. It doesn't work. But they tried to do it so that Punk could give a Hurricane Rana off the top rope to Penthouse, but he slipped and they both fell. And like I said, I'm not trying to pull veteranness on CM Punk. Everybody makes mistakes. And I'm not talking about the bump. I'm talking about the idea of doing it to begin with. It wasn't going to look good to begin with because it was going to look obvious cooperation. And then it fucked up, and it could have been bad. But hopefully he'll not do that anymore. Do you know how he saved this from being worse? Do you know how CM Punk, how he responded to this to save it from getting the "you fucked up" chant, which I think came out later on in the night?
I do, and let me just apologize for Swami going nuts at the UPS man in the background. I think I do. And to me, it was so good, it made me think that maybe it wasn't a flub, but CM Punk's selling of his leg.
Exactly. But it wasn't, he wasn't trying to sell to make you think it wasn't a flub. He knew it looked like a flub. It looked exactly like what it was. They both fell off the top rope. But if two green guys had done that, and then they jumped right back up and started trying to do something else, that would have given the perfect opportunity for the fans to start chanting, "You fucked up, you fucked up," because that's what they do, right? To almost anybody. Mother Teresa, you fucked up. But as soon as Punk landed, he started selling his leg, not his back like he took a bump or his head like he took, but he started selling his knee. And then the people knew, well, that was a fuck up, and now he's holding his knee, and he's keeping selling it. And he's selling it for a while. Now they're worried that their beloved CM Punk has fucked himself up, so they're not going to fucking put the boots to him by going, you fucked up while you're down there needing knee surgery. They started worrying about him instead of taking the opportunity to be wise asses. And then he kept selling the leg, even when Penthouse comes back to him. Then, boom, 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 he fights back. And by the time that he realizes, okay, we've got him out of that point where they're not going to do that, then he sets Penthouse up on the top rope and hits the quick Hurricane Rana just so he can do it, and then gives him a knee in the corner, goes for his finish, but the leg buckles. So now they're back into the match, and now the people are back into the match. If they had done anything else besides him selling like he had accidentally fucked himself up and they were worried, that would have left the opportunity open for the people to get on him and kill the thing even worse. On the spur of the moment, and then you see, because now Penthouse is confused. What are we doing? So there's a brief moment where there's a short conference where Punk gets him back on the page. And they're back into the match, and then boom, boom, boom. And then basically Punk comes back a little bit, calls for the go to sleep. Penthouse blocks it. Enziguri roll-ups back and forth. Punk comes out, hits his finish one time. Go to sleep. 1, 2, 3. It wasn't Punk's best match. I think he did all he could with the style limitations of his opponent, but it was a brilliant save on that flub, because that's the first major fuck-up he's really done on television. It was some that, if they hadn't tried to do that, the match would have been just as good and nobody would have missed it. So for people who say I never criticized Punk, there you go. What'd you think?
I really liked it. I didn't think it was a flub. I thought it was part of the story of the match for two reasons. One, Punk tells really good stories in his match, and that really became the story of the match, was the leg. And two, he worships Bret Hart like all of us smart people do. And Bret was the master of creating an injury during the match and selling it throughout the match. I really liked it. I didn't think the flub, if it was a flub, I didn't think it took away from the match because they went back to it. And if it created the knee injury story, I thought that was the best thing about the match, was Punk selling of the knee. Even when the referee was checking on him on the ground, I wasn't sure what was going on. I wasn't sure if he was hurt or not.
Well, so I liked it. Then I won't even spoil for you how you could go back and determine for yourself that knee was not injured. But that, again, that's how good a worker Punk is and how he thinks on the fly, because we had differing opinions on whether that was a flub or not.
CM Punk has been in AEW now for a while, and he still gets these monster pops. Did you hear that crowd when he came out?
Yes. And I mean, this crowd, they were hot. They haven't had wrestling down there in a while in New Orleans.
Well, we saw what could cool them down, but they were certainly hot for CM Punk.
Well, yes. Yeah. You know, they were hot at the start. As a matter of fact, think about the range. In 2 hours, they took this from one of the hottest wrestling crowds that you'll see on television, dueling chants before the opening match had locked up. And by the end, the same crowd is doing the boo, not boo, we hate you, a heel, boo, we don't like what we're seeing and we want you to stop it. In 2 hours. Interesting.